Okay, now we're gonna go for painting our next monster. This is a digital pencil I did of this guy, or a digital ink, however you want to do it. And I'm just gonna show you a couple little techniques as I was cleaning this up. I thought, well, you guys should see this. So I use a couple different tools when I'm doing this. Uh, the brush tool, which will give me the thin, little straight lines like that. Actually, I shouldn't say the brush tool, the pencil tool. So there's no fading. It's just on thick to thin. See, thick to thin. So that brush looks like it has shape dynamics. Its brush tip shape is round. It has 1% spacing, which is not on the on normally, and it gives you a smoother line. Um, and then the only other thing that's on is shape dynamics, so I get a thick to thin. And there's also smoothing. That really doesn't seem to do too much, really, to tell the truth. But it sounds nice that it's on there. So anyway, so this is a monster. So monsters should have lots of folds and little warty kind of things and stuff. Um, as you can see, he's definitely not, he's like probably a little sort of creature that would jump at you from out of the shadows or something. Uh, he's not. So he looks. I got him looking a little bit sort of craven. I wouldn't say he's an upfront monster that'll take you down. He's a monster who will kind of come at you from the back. Um, and so anyway, so I'll keep rendering with the lines to bring out some detail that I know I'm going to fill then with color. But then to get the shading stuff, you go back to your brush tool, and it's on a soft brush, and put it into dissolve. And dissolve will give you this really nice stipple effect, which is great for black and white illustration because you can bring it all the way. I mean, you can do just full blown sort of shaded pencils this way. And thin, it works as a nice, almost like a pencil tool, like a real pencil tool, because it has a lot of texture to it. But that's great for laying in sort of tonal effects I might want. Let's see how you get the shading. I don't want it to shade too much. I want to leave areas open for me to play while I'm doing it. This will be his shoulder. He kind of doesn't really have too much of a. He's got a big tail thing coming up. The tail's going to have these ridges that go all the way up like this. And he's got arms. So he has no legs. He's got a tail and all that kind of stuff. And big eye. So, okay, from here, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then we're going to paint from here. Now, the good news about a digital pencil is I have him on pretty much no background except for a couple areas that I'm going to erase through right now with a hard edge. I'm going to go ahead and put it on. Yeah, I'll leave it on brush. I'm just going to erase through. Okay. Alright, I'm going to create a new one and fill it. So I just selected, since I have transparency in that layer, I just held the control key and clicked on the layer, and it gives you the selection. I made a new layer that I'll put into multiplying mode that I filled with blue. Okay. And now you can either, I'm just going to leave the selection on, but I'm going to hide it. ahead and rough in with airbrush first. Do I like that color? I'm going to change my base color a little bit. I'm going to bring it a little bit more to an aqua. And I'm going to dirty it up a little bit by lowering the saturation and dropping that. Okay. Okay, I am on soft edge airbrush. Oops, still have dissolve on. See how that texture now. It doesn't work as well in color. The reason why is when you go to print, usually your color gets half-toned, and you'll lose something that's just basically a 1 pixel difference. These are so small, you'll lose them when you use the dissolve tool. So anyway, just an FYI there. Switching back to normal. I'm just going to vary our color a little bit. I don't want it to be all blue. But I want a little bit of, see how the blue I'm not going like 100% opaque there. And there. And I'm going to let a little bit of redness sort of go around the eye and, and some blotchy stuff here and around the nose. Maybe a little bit around the mouth. And then I'm going to give them some off-white teeth color. So again, we're going really fast. I'm going to do this one quick. I was lollygagging on the last one. Get that fin a little bit. Get that fin a little bit. I'm going to give him a little bit of a light coming from this back fin direction. So I'm going to pick a little lighter. I get to follow these cool little ridges. So we start getting a little bit of a shape here. Again, remember, follow it through. So here is the arm would have a little bit of that backlight would hit it too. Backlight would hit it too. And let's go ahead and start rendering some more. Again, I'm just going to kind of bring out some of the shapes in these folds. Remember, so it's a fold, so it comes up in the middle and goes down on the sides. So you want to highlight the middle part and let the sides go back dark. And if I do too much, I can always go back in and change it. Sometimes you want to go right up to the edge. That would really give it a crease. I want them to have a lot of these sort of big wrinkly shapes. Again, on a, not really to be done on a, if you're doing a pretty woman or something like that, but on a monster, this is where you get to get kind of grungy with this stuff. Just going through real rough. You can try and, do these things in as little strokes as possible, meaning that you're not sitting there going, When you're doing it, you want to try and do single strokes a lot. Sometimes I forget that myself. And the reason why is it gives you a little bit more, it gives you more speed, and a little spontaneity kind of gets thrown in there. Living with happy accidents sometimes. Doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. Okay, now I want to start getting rid of that line work. Now there's a couple ways to do that. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that bottom layer, bring it up on top, and I'm going to I'm going to put it in multiplying mode, and then lower the opacity. So I can, still kind of see it, but it becomes more like darker versions of the color that I have already, rather than, oops, and I'll merge down. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and use that smudge tool to blend. I'm just blending in there, softening up. I'm going to switch back to the brush tool. I'm going to do use my hard brush. And the brightness, bring up the saturation. Start accentuating these folds a little bit more. Again, I'm really, drawing with the color. I may keep some of this texture, I may lose it, You can do either. I see some people who are doing some really gorgeous things where they're hardly blending at all these days. And just, remembering that it's going to be, however big it's going to be at the end, and it's going to optically blend for you when it gets smaller anyway. So anyway, let me get back to this. Just rendering in here, doing the folds. Again, if I really want to make something more of a crease than a fold, see how you go right up next to it. Yeah. You can always go back in. I'm picking a darker color now and see how now I can really bring that by going right up. That's very powerful, doing a light against the dark like that. So you have to kind of be careful and know that it's how you want it to work. And the red, I'm gonna make that more red than red. See, sometimes you have to make those decisions yourself. You can't just go with a brighter version. And then you can always so I have a little bit of this going over here, and I can just pick the rest of this from the screen, and it's almost like I've blended together on an artist palette this way. Because I picked up a little bit of that underpaint, and then I can take it to the next level if I want to. Let's give it a little highlight up here. There, see how it's working? It's kind of, reminiscent of a sort of a drunk's nose to a degree. You get that kind of red in there. As I usually fade in, I'll do like, see, I'll do light. Oh, I have a selection there, so I'll do it here. I'll do light. That's light pressure back and forth, and then I'll press heavy and see if you can get that kind of nice grad with that. You know, it's good once you set up sort of your lights and darks. You can just pull from those areas. You don't have to remix stuff. That side of the, almost going to make it like a light is getting there. That's not really what's happening, but it looks kind of cool. By hitting the fold, you know, so if you really had something that was a fold like this, and if you really wanted to get representation with it, depending on what colors you had around it, um, you could have either even should be a little bit of another color coming or lightness coming in on this side of the fold. See, I'll bring that out a little bit more. And the lips, top of the lip comes out, so I'm going to accentuate the top of it, and then I'm going to pull some textures almost coming from it. Just see how that's kind of coming along from that to that to that. A little bit bigger brush again so it doesn't slow me down. Now for this eye shape here, I think what I'm going to do is probably make it, he's going to have a big eye, so I'm going to give him, it's going to be a big red eye. But I'm going to, oops, I forgot I had the selection. If it's going to be big and shiny and reflective, it's going to reflect sort of a horizon line. So I'm going to try that and see how that works. Oops, wrong one. Soft edge brush. I'm going to lose the selection. I mean, it's still there. I'm just hiding it so I can see how it's working. So that would be kind of our horizon with the light on it. Picking a brighter color there. I'm going to go back to the hard brush. I'm just going to almost like thinking like, oh, there's a little sunset going on in the eye, but again, it's one of those ciphers for now I'm not going to hit this shape, so I don't care that it went up like that. I was more interested in the bottom edge, more interested in the bottom edge. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to the airbrush. I'm going to go a little bit of a cool color or a ground color would even work. So it's usually sky and ground that are being. So if I went like, if I went browny with it, it gives you then, you know, this is almost like a little, if you just looked at this little area all cropped in a rectangle, it's almost like some sort of a, it's a, you know, it's a horizon with a sunset on the ground. So that's how that stuff works. going to smooth this out. I'm going to do a little levels adjustment, just to give us back a little beef to this. I think we lost a little bit of that. I just slid it in a little bit. That was it before. See how it's a little washed out? So we got a little more beef to deal with. Again, going back to my smudge tool, I'm going to blend in some of these darks. Blending, give me a little bit bigger brush. You can see how that's kind of coming out now. See, this little dissolve tool blends in really quickly and easily. Just ends up giving you a little bit more value in those areas. And you can always, I'm making it a little smaller now, the smudge tool. And you can always use it to bring in a little more shape. See how this edge, I'm going to break it, I'm going to pull that edge in a little bit more and leave it smooth on the one side and then tight around the other side. Same thing there. And just kind of use it to push and pull your edges a lot. Again, this is just the smudge tool. There's no other stuff going on here at the moment. Just kind of using it to help shape some of the areas that I think need a little kind of structure pulled in. See, I even just could separate that right there. Pull that in and pull this in. And I like it because it also, there's a lot of undercolor going on with this stuff, and I'm not losing that, I'm keeping it. Okay. Let's go ahead and save. Remember to save. And I'm going to save the recording too to start with the second.